The galaxy was silent, not the kind of silence that came with peace, but the eerie quiet after a storm had passed through and left nothing behind. Entire civilizations, planets teeming with life just days before, were now reduced to floating debris, their histories erased as if they had never existed. At the heart of this devastation were the architects, biomechanical beings who moved across the stars like a plague. They didn't conquer or enslave. They consumed. Planets were dismantled piece by piece, their resources harvested with mechanical precision, leaving only hollow voids in their wake. On the outskirts of human space, on a small colony world named EO7, alarms blared as red lights flashed across the sky. The last remnants of its population scrambled toward escape pods, desperate to flee before it was too late. Among them was Commander Leela Torres, a hardened soldier whose face bore the weight of countless battles. She stood at the edge of a crumbling landing pad, clutching her rifle tightly while shouting orders into her communicator. "Move faster. We don't have much time." Above them, the horizon glowed an ominous orange as the architects descended. Their ships weren't traditional vessels. They were massive, organic-looking constructs that seemed alive, pulsating with light and sound. Tentacle-like appendages stretched out from their undersides, latching onto the planet's surface like roots digging into soil. Wherever they touched, structures crumbled, mountains collapsed, and oceans boiled away. It wasn't destruction for destruction's sake. It was methodical, calculated, and horrifyingly efficient. Leela watched as one of the escape shuttles exploded midair, struck by an energy beam fired from above. Her jaw clenched, but she forced herself to focus. There was no room for grief here, not yet. "Get to the last pod," she yelled, motioning for the remaining survivors to follow her. Behind her, screams echoed as another wave of drones swept over the landscape, harvesting everything in their path. Just as Leela reached the final shuttle, a transmission crackled over the comms. It wasn't coming from EO7. It was Earth. Static filled the air, followed by a single, clear voice. "You will not take this world." Everyone froze. The words were simple, almost defiant, but there was something about the tone that sent chills down Leela's spine. Whoever had sent the message sounded calm, resolute, unafraid. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the transmission cut off. What was that?" one of the survivors whispered, his voice trembling. "I don't know," Leela replied, shaking her head. But deep down, she felt a flicker of hope, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself to entertain in years. If Earth was still standing, still fighting back, maybe humanity wasn't doomed after all. As the shuttle launched into orbit, Leela glanced back at EO7 through the viewport. The planet was already breaking apart, swallowed whole by the architects. For a moment, she wondered how Earth could possibly stand against such overwhelming power. Then she remembered the transmission, and the determination in its voice. Something told her that when the architects reached Earth, they would face something entirely different from anything they'd encountered before. For the first time in years, Leela let herself believe that humanity might actually have a chance. Whatever awaited the architects on Earth, it wouldn't be easy for them. Not this time. This version captures the tension and sets up the story in a way that draws readers in without overwhelming complexity. Let me know if you'd like adjustments. Earth wasn't like the other worlds the architects had consumed. It was chaotic, unpredictable, and teeming with life in ways no one fully understood, not even humans themselves. But now, as the alien tide approached, humanity faced a choice: fight or flee. And for many, fleeing wasn't an option. Dr. Elena Voss sat in a dimly lit lab deep beneath the ruins of what was once New York City. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the settings on a holographic display showing data streams from dozens of destroyed colonies. The screen flickered with images of planets reduced to barren wastelands, their atmospheres stripped away and their cores mined for resources. She clenched her fists, trying to push aside the memories of losing her family during one of those attacks years ago. Elena wasn't a soldier. She was a scientist, a xenobiologist by trade. She had spent most of her career studying extraterrestrial ecosystems. Now, however, her work had taken on a new urgency. For the past year, she had led Project Resonance, a secretive initiative tasked with understanding the architects. Her team believed that Earth held something unique, something that might give humanity a fighting chance. "Alina," called out Captain Marcus Kane, his voice sharp and commanding. He strode into the lab, his boots echoing against the cold metal floor. Tall and broad-shouldered, Kane carried himself with the confidence of someone who had seen too much war but refused to back down. His uniform was worn, patched up after countless battles, and his face bore scars both visible and invisible. "We don't have time for theories anymore. They're moving faster than we anticipated." Kane placed a tablet on the desk in front of her. The screen displayed real-time tracking data of the architect's fleet. Their trajectory was unmistakable. They were heading straight for Earth. Alina stared at the map, her mind racing. "I know," she said softly, "but brute force won't stop them, Marcus. We've tried that already. Look where it got us." Kane's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue, to insist that more weapons, more soldiers, would make a difference. But he couldn't deny the truth. Every battle humanity had fought against the architects had ended in failure. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything Earth could produce. Fighting them head-on was suicide. "What do you propose, then?" Kane asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Alina turned back to the hologram, pointing at a series of strange patterns embedded in the data. "These aren't random movements," she explained. "They're harmonic frequencies, sound waves encoded into their attacks. I think they use resonance to dismantle planets, if we can disrupt those frequencies." "You're talking about using Earth itself as a weapon," Kane interrupted, his voice low and skeptical. "You realize how dangerous that is. We're not just risking our lives. We're risking the planet." "I'm aware of the risks," Alina shot back, her eyes blazing with determination. "But if we don't try, Earth will be gone anyway. This isn't just about survival. It's about proving that we're worth saving." Before Kane could respond, the lights in the lab flickered, and an alarm blared overhead. Both of them looked up as a technician rushed in, panic written all over his face. "Commander Kane, Dr. Voss, we've detected probes entering Earth's atmosphere. They're smaller than usual, but they're spreading quickly." Kane cursed under his breath. "How long until they reach us?" "Minutes," the technician replied. Alina grabbed a tablet and began typing furiously. "We need to activate the harmonic amplifiers immediately. Even if they're not fully calibrated, it's our only shot." Kane hesitated, torn between trusting Alina's plan and doubting its feasibility. Finally, he nodded. "Do it. But if this goes sideways, we're evacuating everyone." As the team scrambled to prepare, Alina felt a surge of hope mixed with dread. Earth was humanity's last stand, and maybe, just maybe, it was also their best chance. The probes descended like shadows, slipping through Earth's atmosphere with eerie silence. They weren't massive ships or towering machines, just small, sleek drones that glided effortlessly over cities, forests, and oceans. But their presence was enough to send shivers down humanity's spine. No one knew what they were looking for, or why the architects had sent them instead of launching a full-scale attack. Dr. Alina Voss stood in the control room of Project Resonance, her eyes glued to the monitors displaying live feeds from satellites tracking the drones. Each drone emitted faint pulses of light, almost like heartbeats. She leaned closer, studying the patterns. "They're scanning," she muttered under her breath, "but not randomly. There's a rhythm to it." Captain Marcus Kane paced behind her, his boots thudding against the metal floor. He didn't understand half of what Alina was saying, but he trusted her instincts, even if her ideas often sounded insane. "What does that mean?" he asked, stopping beside her. "Are they mapping the planet, looking for weaknesses?" Alina shook her head. "I don't think so. These pulses, they're harmonic frequencies, like sound waves. I've seen this before in the data from other colonies. It's how the architects communicate with each other, and maybe even with their targets. Kane frowned. You're telling me these things are talking to us? Not exactly, Alina replied. But they're interacting with Earth's environment. Listen to this. She tapped a few keys on the console, and a low hum filled the room. It was rhythmic, almost melodic, but there was an unsettling edge to it. A tone that made Kane's skin crawl. That's creepy, he admitted. What happens when we respond? Alina hesitated. We don't know yet, but I think we can use it to our advantage. If we broadcast our own frequencies, ones designed to interfere with theirs, we might be able to confuse them, maybe even repel them. Kane crossed his arms. And if we get it wrong, then we risk pissing them off, Alina said bluntly. But sitting here doing nothing isn't an option either. We have to try. Before Kane could argue further, alarms blared again. One of the technicians shouted, Dr. Voss, Captain Kane, you need to see this. On the main screen, a cluster of drones had converged over the Amazon rainforest. The area lit up with strange energy pulses, and within seconds, entire sections of the forest began to wither and die. They're testing something, Alina whispered, her voice tight with urgency. Whatever they're doing, it's interacting directly with Earth's biosphere. Kane slammed his fist against the wall. Damn it. Why aren't they attacking outright? What are they waiting for? I don't think they're waiting, Alina said slowly. I think they're learning, adapting. And if we don't act soon, they'll figure out how to dismantle Earth just like they did every other planet. She turned back to the console, her fingers flying across the keyboard. I'm going to transmit a countersignal. Something strong enough to disrupt their scans. If I'm right, it could buy us some time. Or make them angry enough to wipe us out, Kane countered. It's a risk we have to take, Alina shot back. Trust me, Marcus. This is our only shot. With a deep breath, she activated the signal. A sharp, resonant tone erupted from the speakers, vibrating through the control room. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, on the monitors, the drones faltered. Their movements became erratic, and the energy pulses over the Amazon faded. Kane stared at the screen, stunned. Did it work? For now, Alina replied, though her expression remained grim. But this is just the beginning. Whatever the architects want from Earth, they're not going to give up easily. As the team celebrated the small victory, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing a dangerous game, one where the stakes were higher than anyone realized. This section introduces tension, showcases Alina's ingenuity, and hints at the larger mystery surrounding the architects. Let me know if you'd like adjustments. The victory was short-lived. While Alina's counter-signal had disrupted the drones over the Amazon, it hadn't destroyed them. And now they were adapting. Reports flooded in from across the globe. The probes were no longer scanning passively. They were actively targeting key locations, urban centers, research facilities, and natural landmarks like geysers and coral reefs. It was as if the architects were probing Earth's defenses, testing its resilience. In the heart of Project Resonance, Dr. Alina Voss worked tirelessly to refine her harmonic signals. Her lab was a chaotic mess of wires, screens, and hunting equipment, but she barely noticed. Every second counted, and she couldn't afford to slow down. We need more power, she muttered to herself, tweaking the settings on the transmission array. If we can amplify the signal further, we might be able to disable them completely. Captain Marcus Kane stood nearby, watching her with a mix of admiration and frustration. He respected her brilliance, but her relentless focus sometimes blinded her to the bigger picture. Alina, he said firmly, stepping closer. You're pushing this system too hard. If you overload it, we could lose everything. I know what I'm doing, Marcus, she snapped without looking up. And sitting around waiting for them to figure us out isn't an option. Before Kane could respond, the door burst open, and a young technician rushed in, breathless. Dr. Voss, Captain Kane, one of the drones. It's heading straight for the facility. Kane's hand instinctively went to his sidearm. Where is it? It breached the perimeter 5 minutes ago, the technician stammered. Security teams are trying to hold it off, but it's not stopping. Alina froze, her mind racing. This was it, the moment she'd been dreading and preparing for. Get everyone to safety, she ordered. I'll stay here and try to disrupt it remotely. No way, Kane shot back. You're not staying alone. Let's deal with this together. Against her protests, Kane grabbed a portable harmonic emitter, a handheld device designed to emit disruptive frequencies, and led Alina toward the breach point. As they moved through the dimly lit corridors, the sounds of chaos grew louder. Shouts, gunfire, and the low hum of the drone's approach. When they reached the main hallway, the scene was surreal. The drone hovered silently at the far end, its sleek surface shimmering like liquid metal. Security personnel fired at it relentlessly, but their bullets ricocheted harmlessly off its shell. The air vibrated with an unsettling hum, growing louder as the drone advanced. Stay back, Alina shouted, raising the emitter. She activated it, sending a sharp pulse of sound waves toward the drone. For a moment, it stopped, its movements faltering. But then, to everyone's horror, it adjusted. Its surface rippled, absorbing the frequency, and began emitting a new tone, one that resonated painfully in their ears. Kane winced, clutching his head. It's learning, he growled. We need to take it down now. Thinking quickly, Alina scanned the area. Her eyes landed on a nearby ventilation shaft connected to the facility's geothermal energy grid. Marcus, help me get it into the shaft, she yelled. If we trap it there and overload the system, we might be able to disable it. Without hesitation, Kane moved to distract the drone, firing bursts of noise from another emitter while Alina positioned herself near the shaft. The plan was risky. If the explosion spread, it could destabilize part of the facility. But they didn't have time to think twice. As the drone turned toward Kane, Alina triggered the trap. With a deafening roar, the shaft erupted in a surge of energy, engulfing the drone in a blinding flash of light. When the dust settled, the machine lay motionless, its surface cracked and inert. Breathing heavily, Alina approached it cautiously. We did it, she whispered, relief washing over her. But as she examined the remains, something caught her eye. A faint glow emanating from within the wreckage. Before she could react, the glow intensified, and a series of pulsating tones echoed through the room. They're still communicating, Kane said grimly. Whatever we just did, they know about it. Alina nodded, her expression grim. This isn't over. Not even close. The captured drone lay in the center of Project Resonance's lab, its cracked and lifeless form a stark contrast to the sleek menace it had once been. But appearances could be deceiving. Beneath its damaged exterior, faint pulses of light continued to flicker, as if the machine were still alive, still listening. Dr. Alina Voss stared at it intently, her mind racing with questions. What was it communicating? And to whom? Are you sure this is safe? Captain Marcus Kane asked, his hand resting uneasily on the hilt of his sidearm. He stood near the door, ready to act if the situation turned dangerous again. As safe as anything involving the architects can be, Alina replied without looking up. She adjusted the sensors connected to the drone, trying to decode the rhythmic tones emanating from it. These signals, they're not random. They're structured like language. Kane frowned. You think it's calling for backup? Maybe, Alina admitted. But I also think it's reporting back, telling them what happened here. Her voice hardened. Which means we don't have much time. The implications weighed heavily on both of them. If the architects knew about Earth's ability to disrupt their technology, they might accelerate their plans or adapt even faster than before. Either way, humanity's window of opportunity was closing rapidly. Alina leaned closer to the monitor displaying the decoded data. Something unusual caught her attention. Patterns within the signals that matched frequencies found in Earth's natural ecosystems. Whale songs, wind currents, even seismic activity, all seemed to resonate with the alien tones. "That's it," she whispered, her eyes widening with realization. "Earth's biosphere, it's interfering with their systems." "What does that mean?" Kane asked, stepping closer. "It means Earth isn't just another target," Elena explained excitedly. "It's different. The planet itself generates harmonic frequencies that disrupt the architects. That's why they haven't attacked outright. They're cautious because Earth poses a unique challenge." Kane crossed his arms, skeptical but intrigued. "So what's the plan? Turn the whole planet into some kind of sonic weapon?" "In a way, yes," Elena said, turning to face him. "If we can amplify Earth's natural frequencies, use geothermal energy, ocean currents, and other environmental factors, we might create a harmonic shield around the planet, one strong enough to repel them." Kane raised an eyebrow. "Sounds risky. What happens if we push too hard?" "We risk destabilizing Earth's own systems," Elena admitted grimly. "Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, maybe worse. But if we don't try, we lose everything anyway." Before Kane could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. A technician rushed into the room, panic etched on his face. "Dr. Voss, Captain Kane, we've detected massive energy spikes across multiple regions. The Architect's fleet is accelerating toward Earth." Elena clenched her fists, her resolve solidifying. "They're coming sooner than expected. We need to activate the amplifiers now." Kane hesitated, weighing the risks. Finally, he nodded. "Do it, but prepare for the worst." As Elena and her team scrambled to implement the plan, the world outside began to change. Oceans churned violently, skies darkened with strange auroras, and animals migrated en masse, as if sensing the impending storm. Humanity braced itself for what was coming, not just the wrath of the architects, but the raw power of Earth itself rising to meet them. Elena watched the monitors, her heart pounding. She didn't know if their gambit would succeed or doom the planet. But one thing was certain: Earth was fighting back. And when the battle began, nothing would ever be the same again. This section dives deeper into the mechanics of the conflict while raising the stakes and setting the stage for humanity's desperate gamble. Let me know if you'd like tweaks. The plan was simple in theory, but devastating in execution. Amplifying Earth's harmonic frequencies required tapping into its most powerful energy sources: geothermal vents, oceanic currents, and even the planet's magnetic field. But accessing these resources came at a cost. Entire regions would need to be sacrificed, their ecosystems disrupted or destroyed to fuel the amplifiers. It was a decision no one wanted to make, yet time had run out for hesitation. Dr. Elena Voss stood in the command center, staring at a holographic map of Earth projected above the table. Red zones marked the areas designated for activation: vast stretches of rainforest in South America, geothermal hotspots beneath Iceland, and deep-sea trenches in the Pacific Ocean. Each location pulsed ominously, as if the planet itself were protesting what was about to happen. "This is insane," muttered Captain Marcus Kane, pacing behind her. "You're talking about tearing apart the very thing we're trying to protect." "I know," Elena replied quietly, her voice heavy with guilt. "But it's the only way. If we don't do this, the architects will dismantle Earth completely. At least this way, we have a chance." Kane stopped pacing and looked at her, his expression torn between anger and resignation. "And what happens to the people living there? The animals, the forests? We're not just sacrificing land. We're destroying lives." Elena turned to face him, her eyes blazing with determination. "I'm not asking you to like it, Marcus. I'm asking you to trust me. This isn't just about saving humanity. It's about giving Earth a fighting chance. Yes, it'll hurt. Yes, it'll leave scars. But if we survive this, we can rebuild." Before Kane could argue further, the door burst open, and a group of civilians stormed in. They were led by an elderly woman clutching a protest sign that read, "Save our planet." Her voice trembled with outrage. How dare you destroy our home in the name of saving it? You're no better than the architects." Elena stepped forward, her hands raised in a gesture of calm. "I understand your fear," she said firmly. "But if we don't act now, there won't be a home left to save. Trust me, this hurts me too. But sometimes survival demands sacrifices." The woman hesitated, tears streaming down her face, but she didn't back down. "If this goes wrong, you'll have blood on your hands." Elena nodded solemnly. "If it goes wrong, I'll take full responsibility." As the crowd reluctantly dispersed, Elena returned to the map, her resolve hardening. She gave the order to begin the process. Across the globe, teams worked tirelessly to activate the amplifiers. In the Amazon, massive drills pierced the earth, releasing torrents of steam and ash. Beneath the icy landscapes of Iceland, geysers erupted uncontrollably, flooding nearby villages. In the depths of the Pacific, underwater turbines churned violently, displacing marine life and triggering tsunamis. Back in the command center, Elena watched the monitors as Earth began to transform. The harmonic shield flickered to life, surrounding the planet in a shimmering aura of sound and energy. For the first time, the architects' fleet faltered, their advance slowing as the frequencies disrupted their systems. But the cost was immediate and brutal. Reports poured in of earthquakes leveling cities, hurricanes obliterating coastlines, and wildfires consuming entire ecosystems. Millions of lives were lost in the chaos, and public dissent grew louder. Protesters gathered outside Project Resonance, accusing Elena and her team of playing God. Amidst the turmoil, Kane approached her, his face grim. "Was it worth it?" he asked softly. Elena stared at the screen, where the shield glowed faintly against the encroaching alien fleet. "I don't know," she admitted, "but we'll find out soon enough." This section highlights the moral dilemmas and sacrifices involved in humanity's desperate bid for survival, keeping readers emotionally engaged while escalating the tension. Let me know if you'd like adjustments. The harmonic shield hummed around Earth like a living thing, its shimmering waves rippling across the atmosphere. For the first time since the architects had arrived, their relentless advance slowed. Their massive biomechanical ships hovered uncertainly at the edge of Earth's orbit, their movements jerky and uncoordinated. It was as if the planet itself had awakened, pushing back against the invaders with a force they couldn't comprehend. But the victory came at a devastating cost. Earth groaned under the strain of the amplified frequencies. Tectonic plates shifted violently, triggering earthquakes that leveled entire cities. Volcanoes erupted in regions long thought dormant, spewing ash into skies already choked with smoke from wildfires. Oceans churned unpredictably, swallowing coastal towns beneath towering tsunamis. The natural world, the very foundation of humanity's existence, was unraveling before their eyes. Dr. Elena Voss stood on the observation deck of Project Resonance, her hands gripping the railing tightly. Below her, chaos reigned. Refugees flooded evacuation centers, their faces etched with grief and exhaustion. News feeds broadcast images of destruction. Families huddled in makeshift shelters, animals fleeing burning forests, and endless lines of people desperate for safety. She felt the weight of every decision she'd made pressing down on her chest, suffocating her with guilt. "Elena," Captain Marcus Kane said softly, stepping beside her. His voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed the turmoil within him. "You did what you had to do. No one blames you." "That's not true," she replied bitterly, refusing to look at him. "Millions are dead because of me. Millions more will suffer because of this." She gestured toward the monitors displaying global reports. "We're destroying our own home just to survive. Is that really worth it?" Kane hesitated, unsure how to respond. He wanted to reassure her, to tell her that survival justified any sacrifice. But deep down, he wasn't so sure himself. Instead, he changed the subject. "What happens next?" "They've stopped advancing, but they're not retreating either. They're adapting," Elena said grimly. "They're studying the shield, learning how to counteract it." We bought ourselves some time, but not much. Before Kane could reply, alarms blared throughout the facility. Technicians rushed to the main console, their voices overlapping in panic. Dr. Voss. Captain Kane. There's activity near Saturn. Alina and Kane hurried to the screen, where a new development unfolded. A colossal structure, a pulsating, organic mass larger than anything they'd seen before, had emerged from behind Saturn's rings. It radiated energy in waves, dwarfing even the largest ships in the Architect's fleet. "What is that?" Kane asked, his voice tight with unease. "It's their core," Alina whispered, her eyes wide with realization. "The heart of their hive mind. That's where their consciousness resides." Kane turned to her sharply. "If we destroy it, we might cripple them," she finished, her voice trembling. "But getting close enough to do that." She trailed off, knowing the odds were impossible. Kane straightened, his military instincts kicking in. "Then we go after it." Alina stared at him, stunned. "Are you serious? Even if we make it past their fleet, there's no guarantee we can take it down. This isn't a battle. It's suicide." "I didn't say it would be easy," Kane replied firmly. "But sitting here waiting for them to adapt isn't an option either. If we don't act now, everything we've done, all the sacrifices, will mean nothing." For a moment, Alina didn't respond. Her mind raced, weighing the risks and rewards. Finally, she nodded slowly. "All right, but we'll need a team, and a plan that doesn't get us killed before we even reach the core." As they began assembling a crew and strategizing their mission, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into the unknown. Whatever awaited them near Saturn, it would test not only their courage, but also their humanity. This section ramps up tension by introducing the alien core, while exploring the emotional toll of the sacrifices made, keeping readers hooked. Let me know if you'd like tweaks. The mission to infiltrate the Architect's core was as daring as it was desperate. Captain Marcus Kane led a small, hand-picked team aboard the Aegis, a retrofitted spacecraft equipped with harmonic disruptors and experimental shielding. Among them were Dr. Alina Voss, whose expertise was crucial for navigating the alien frequencies, Lieutenant Arun Patel, a skilled pilot who had flown countless dangerous missions, and Corporal Tessa Morales, an engineer tasked with keeping the ship's systems running against overwhelming odds. As the Aegis launched into space, Earth receded behind them, a fragile blue sphere surrounded by the shimmering harmonic shield. The sight filled Kane with both pride and dread. Humanity had fought back in ways no one thought possible, but now everything rested on this single perilous journey. If they failed, Earth would fall, and so would every hope for survival. The trip to Saturn was anything but smooth. Almost immediately, the crew encountered resistance. Swarms of biomechanical drones intercepted their path, firing beams of energy that rattled the ship's hull. Inside the cockpit, Lieutenant Patel's hands danced across the controls as he maneuvered through the chaos. "Hold on," he shouted over the alarms. "These things are faster than I expected." Corporal Morales worked frantically at her station, rerouting power to reinforce the shields. "We can't take much more of this," she yelled, sweat dripping from her brow. Alina focused intently on her console, analyzing the incoming attacks. "They're targeting specific frequencies," she said urgently. "Adjust the harmonic emitters to match their patterns. We might be able to confuse them." Kane nodded, trusting her judgment. "Do it. Let's give them something to think about." With Alina's guidance, the Aegis emitted a burst of dissonant tones, causing the drones to falter momentarily. Seizing the opportunity, Patel pushed the engines to maximum speed, weaving through the swarm toward Saturn. Behind them, the drones regrouped, their movements more coordinated than before. "They're learning," Alina muttered, frustration evident in her voice. "Every time we adapt, they do too." Hours passed in tense silence as the crew neared Saturn. When the massive structure housing the Architect's core finally came into view, the scale of it left them speechless. It loomed like a living planet, its surface pulsating with light and sound. Strange appendages extended outward, connecting it to smaller ships and drones orbiting nearby. It wasn't just a machine. It felt alive. "This is insane," Morales whispered, staring at the monitors. "How are we supposed to take that thing down?" "We don't have to destroy it completely," Alina explained, though her tone betrayed her uncertainty. "If we can sever its connection to the rest of the fleet, it'll weaken their collective consciousness. That might give Earth a fighting chance." Kane gripped the edge of his seat, his jaw clenched. "All right, here's the plan. Alina, you stay on the ship and handle the harmonic disruptors. Morales, keep us flying. Patel, get us close enough to deploy the charges, and I'll lead the ground team inside." "Wait, ground team?" Alina asked sharply, turning to face him. "You're going in there, alone." "I won't be alone," Kane replied firmly. "I'm taking 2 volunteers. We'll plant the explosives and get out before they know what hit them." Alina opened her mouth to argue but stopped herself. She knew Kane well enough to recognize the determination in his eyes. There was no changing his mind once he'd made up his mind. Instead, she simply nodded. "Be careful." As the Aegis approached the core, the crew braced themselves for the final leg of their mission. Sensors detected increased activity within the structure, as if the architects sensed their presence. For the first time, doubt crept into Kane's thoughts. Was this bravery or recklessness? But there was no turning back now. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and whatever awaited them inside the core, they would face it together, or not at all. This section builds suspense and highlights the bravery and risks of the crew as they prepare to confront the architects. Let me know if you'd like adjustments. The air inside the core was unlike anything Captain Marcus Kane had ever experienced. It wasn't just cold, it vibrated, as if the very space around him were alive. The walls of the structure pulsed with light, shifting colors in rhythmic patterns that seemed almost organic. Every step echoed unnaturally, blending with the low hum of harmonic frequencies emanating from deep within the core. This wasn't a machine. It was a living entity, a collective consciousness housed in an alien cathedral. Kane led his team cautiously through the labyrinthine corridors, their movements slow and deliberate. Behind him were Corporal Tessa Morales and Lieutenant Arun Patel, each carrying explosive charges designed to sever the core's connection to the architect's fleet. Their suits were equipped with portable harmonic disruptors, but even those felt woefully inadequate against the overwhelming presence surrounding them. "This place gives me the creeps," Morales muttered under her breath, her voice trembling despite her attempt to sound calm. "It's like it knows we're here." "It probably does," Kane replied grimly, scanning the area for any signs of movement. "Stay sharp. We don't know what we're dealing with." As they moved deeper into the core, the environment began to change. The pulsing lights grew brighter, and the vibrations intensified, resonating through their bodies. Strange symbols appeared on the walls, glowing faintly before fading away. Alina's voice crackled over their comms. "Kane, I'm picking up increased activity near your location. Whatever you're doing, hurry. We're moving as fast as we can." Kane responded, his tone clipped. He glanced at Patel, who nodded and quickened his pace. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shifted, and the walls rippled like liquid metal. Out of the shadows emerged figures, biomechanical beings that looked part human, part machine. Unlike the drones they'd encountered earlier, these entities radiated intelligence, their movements fluid and purposeful. "They're not attacking," Patel whispered, his voice filled with awe. "Why aren't they attacking?" "They're studying us," Kane realized aloud, his grip tightening on his weapon. "They want to understand why we're here." Before anyone could react, one of the beings stepped forward, its form shimmering as it spoke, not in words, but in tones and vibrations that resonated directly in their minds. The message was clear: "You seek to destroy us. Why?" Kane hesitated, unsure how to respond. Finally, he raised his hands slowly. signaling peace. "We're not here to destroy you," he said carefully, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "We're here to survive, to protect our home." The being tilted its head, processing his words. Then it emitted another series of tones, this time softer, almost curious. "Your actions disrupt balance. You consume without restraint, yet you resist when faced with extinction." Elena's voice broke through the tension. "Cain, they're communicating. Keep talking. Find out more." Cain swallowed hard, choosing his next words carefully. "We've made mistakes. We've hurt our planet, yes. But we're learning. We want to fix what we've broken. Help us prove that we're worth saving." For a moment, there was silence. The biomechanical beings exchanged pulses of light, as if debating among themselves. Then the lead figure extended a tendril-like appendage toward Cain, brushing lightly against his suit. A flood of images and sensations overwhelmed him. Planets crumbling, stars dying, civilizations rising and falling. It was as if the architects were showing him their purpose, maintaining cosmic equilibrium by pruning unsustainable life forms. When the vision ended, Cain staggered back, shaken but resolute. "We're not like the others," he insisted. "Give us a chance to prove it." The being paused, then emitted a single resonant tone. The vibrations rippled outward, spreading through the core. Moments later, Elena's voice came through the comms again, this time tinged with disbelief. "Cain, they're retreating. The fleet is pulling back from Earth." Cain exhaled sharply, relief washing over him. But as he turned to leave, the lead being stopped him with one final transmission. "Prove yourselves, or we will return." As the team hurried back to the Aegis, Cain couldn't shake the weight of those words. They had been given a reprieve, but nothing more. Humanity's future depended on whether they could rise to the challenge. This section introduces dialogue with the architects, exploring their motivations while keeping the stakes high. Let me know if you'd like adjustments. The journey back to Earth felt like an eternity. The Aegis drifted silently through the void, its crew battered but alive. Captain Marcus Cain sat in the cockpit, staring out at the stars as they streaked past. His mind replayed the encounter with the architects. Their words, their warnings, and the ultimatum that hung over humanity's future. "Prove yourselves," they had said. It wasn't a victory. It was a test. Dr. Elena Voss joined him after a while, her face pale but determined. She slid into the seat beside him, her gaze fixed on the distant blue glow of Earth growing larger in the viewport. "Do you think we passed?" she asked softly, breaking the silence. Cain exhaled slowly, rubbing his temples. "I don't know, but I do know one thing. We can't go back to the way things were. If we want to survive, we need to change." Elena nodded, her thoughts mirroring his own. "They showed us their purpose, didn't they? Maintaining balance. Maybe that's what we've been missing all along, a sense of responsibility for the world we live in." As the Aegis entered Earth's atmosphere, the sight below was both heartbreaking and hopeful. The scars of war were everywhere, cities reduced to rubble, forests burned to ash, oceans still churning from the harmonic shield's activation. Yet amidst the devastation, there were signs of resilience. Survivors worked together to rebuild, planting new trees, clearing debris, and caring for the wounded. Humanity had endured, and now it faced the challenge of healing. Upon landing, Cain and Elena were greeted by crowds of people eager for news. Rumors had spread about their mission, and hope flickered in weary eyes as they stepped off the ship. Without hesitation, Cain addressed the crowd, his voice firm but compassionate. "We've been given a second chance," he began. "But it comes with conditions. The architects won't tolerate our mistakes anymore. If we want to keep this planet, we need to prove that we're worth saving." Elena stepped forward, taking over. "That means working together, not just as nations or communities, but as caretakers of Earth. We have to restore what we've destroyed and find ways to live sustainably. This isn't just about survival. It's about earning the right to call this place home." Her words resonated deeply, sparking murmurs of agreement among the crowd. For the first time in years, humanity seemed united, not by fear, but by purpose. In the weeks that followed, efforts to rebuild gained momentum. Teams led by scientists like Elena studied fragments of alien technology left behind, using them to develop tools for environmental restoration. Forests regrew faster thanks to bioengineered seeds. Coral reefs regenerated with artificial ecosystems, and renewable energy projects flourished across the globe. Slowly but surely, Earth began to heal. Kane visited Elena one evening atop a hill overlooking a recovering landscape. Whale songs echoed across the ocean below. Wind rustled through newly planted trees, and the sky shimmered with auroras born from the lingering effects of the harmonic shield. He smiled faintly, feeling a rare moment of peace. "You did good, Elena," he said, his tone carrying pride and gratitude. "You gave us a fighting chance." She shook her head, her expression thoughtful. "It wasn't just me. It was everyone. And it's not over yet. We still have work to do." Kane nodded, knowing she was right. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, he allowed himself to believe in a brighter future. Together, humanity would rise to meet the challenges posed by the architects. They would learn, adapt, and grow, not because they had to, but because they chose to. As the sun set over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Elena whispered, "Let's make sure we never forget what we almost lost." And for the first time in a long time, Kane felt a glimmer of hope. This final section ties up loose ends while emphasizing themes of unity, renewal, and responsibility, leaving readers with a sense of optimism despite the sacrifices made. Let me know if you'd like any tweaks.